Let's get real for a second. Co-parenting isn't about you, your ego, or proving who's right. It's about one thing, your children. And if you let your unresolved emotions, bitterness, or need to win take the driver's seat, your kids are the ones who crash and burn. I'll give it to you straight. Children don't care who had the better lawyer, who was right in the breakup, or who posts the best Instagram story. They care about stability, safety, and love. If you're weaponizing time, money, or communication, then you're putting your kids in the crossfire. That's not parenting, it's emotional warfare. And kids always lose when parents refuse to grow up. When I tell you that your child's needs come before your emotions, I'm not asking you to pretend your feelings don't exist. You're human. You've been hurt, betrayed, disappointed, maybe even humiliated in your past relationship. That pain is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. But here's the truth you may not want to hear. Your child did not sign up for your breakup, your arguments, or your bitterness. They didn't ask for 2 households, missed birthdays, or awkward handoffs in parking lots. That's not their burden to carry. And yet, when you let your emotions run the show, you shift that weight right onto their shoulders. Let me be crystal clear, your child does not need to be your therapist. They don't need to hear about how awful your ex is, how unfair the court system was, or how much you resent paying child support. When you vent like that, you're asking your child to process emotions that belong to you, not to them. That's backwards. That's not parenting. Parenting means you take the hit, you process your feelings in the right places, with a counselor, with friends, with a journal, but you don't hand that baggage to your kid. Think about this, a child's world is fragile, and it's built on the sense that the people they depend on are stable, safe, and consistent. If every time your ex's name comes up, you roll your eyes, curse under your breath, or start a lecture, your child absorbs that energy. They learn that love is conditional, that relationships are battlefields, and that they're stuck in the middle of a war zone they can't escape. Do you want that lesson stamped on their heart? Because that's what happens when you put your emotions in the driver's seat. Now you might say, but I can't help how I feel. And you're right, you can't always control the first wave of emotion. But you can absolutely control how you act on it. You can choose whether you take that anger and unload it on your child, or whether you take a breath, step back, and remind yourself, this isn't about me. This is about my kid. That moment of choice, that pause, is where you decide whether you're going to be a grown-up or not. Let me give you an example. Let's say your ex cancels a weekend visit at the last minute. Your knee-jerk reaction might be to lash out, say something like, see, your dad never keeps his promises, or your mom doesn't care enough about you to show up. That feels good in the moment because it validates your anger. But here's the ugly truth. You just forced your child to carry your pain. You've made them question whether they're worthy of love because in their mind, if mom or dad doesn't show up, maybe it's about them. That's devastating. Instead, if you step out of your emotions and put your child first, you'd respond differently. You'd say, I know you're disappointed, and it's okay to feel that. I'm here for you, and I love you. Notice how the focus shifts from your anger to their emotional safety. That's what it means to prioritize their needs. You protect their heart even when yours is breaking. And let's talk about another trap parents fall into, using children as pawns to punish the other parent. Denying visitation, withholding information, or manipulating schedules to get back at your ex might satisfy your ego, but it damages your child's sense of security. When you put your emotions above their needs, you're teaching them that love comes with strings attached, that affection is a tool for control. Do you really want your son or daughter to carry that lesson into their own adult relationships? Because they will. Children learn by watching you. Here's the bottom line, your emotions are temporary, but the impact on your child is permanent. That bitterness you carry won't hurt your ex nearly as much as it will shape your child's self-worth, their future relationships, and their mental health. So yes, feel your anger, grieve your loss, but keep that in the lane where it belongs, outside of your parenting. Putting your child's needs before your emotions isn't easy. It means swallowing your pride. It means taking the high road when you'd rather drag someone through the mud. It means showing restraint when you feel like exploding. But it also means your child gets to grow up in an environment where they feel loved unconditionally, where they don't have to choose sides, and where they know both parents have their back. That is worth every ounce of self-control. At the end of the day, your child doesn't need you to be perfect. They need you to be steady. They need to know that no matter what happens between the adults, they're not going to be caught in the crossfire. When you put their needs above your emotions, you give them the greatest gift a child of divorce or separation could ever receive, the freedom to just be a kid. And that's the standard you should hold yourself to every single day. Here's the truth a lot of people don't want to hear. You don't have to, like your co-parent, to raise your kids well. You don't have to hang out, take vacations together, or pretend you're best friends. In fact, trying to force a fake friendship usually ends in resentment and blurred boundaries. What you need is a clear, Structured partnership that looks a whole lot more like running a business than maintaining a friendship. The business you're running is your child's life, their stability, their health, and their future. And if you can approach it with that mindset, you'll avoid a lot of unnecessary drama. Think about any business relationship. You might not love your boss or your coworkers, but you show up, do your job, and communicate professionally. Why? Because the work matters more than your personal feelings. That's the exact mindset you need with co-parenting. Your personal history with your ex, the hurt, the betrayal, the anger doesn't change the fact that your shared job is raising a child who feels secure and supported. When you start treating parenting decisions like business decisions, you strip away the emotional games and focus on results. Now let's get real business. Like communication means you keep it short, respectful, and focused on the task at hand. This is not the time for sarcasm, guilt trips, or rehashing old arguments. If your co-parent asks about school pickup, the answer isn't, well, if you hadn't bailed on us last week. That's emotional baggage. A business-like response would be, yes, I'll handle pickup Monday. Can you cover Wednesday? Straightforward, clear, no venom. You don't have to sugarcoat, but you do have to stay respectful. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing co-parenting with reconciliation. They think if I'm nice enough or accommodating enough, maybe we'll get back together. That's not co-parenting, that's wishful thinking. On the flip side, some parents stay stuck in punishment mode. I'm going to make every interaction painful because I want you to pay for what you did. That's not co-parenting either, that's revenge. Both of those mindsets put your child in the middle of an emotional tug of war they never asked to be part of. When you treat the relationship like a business, you bypass those traps. You focus on logistics, planning, and execution, not on feeding your emotional agenda. Now, what does this look like in practical terms? It means creating systems. Just like a business has calendars, contracts, and meetings, you and your co-parent need schedules, agreements, and regular check-ins. Write down visitation schedules. Use a shared app or calendar so there are no she said arguments about who's supposed to be where. Document important details, doctor appointments, school events, extracurricular activities, so that both parties have the same information. Businesses don't run on assumptions, they run on clarity. Your co-parenting relationship should be no different. This also means you set boundaries. In a business, you don't get to call your coworker at 1 a.m. to rehash old conflicts. In co-parenting, you don't get to blow up your ex's phone with angry texts just because you're upset. Limit communication to necessary topics about the kids. Keep your emotions in check and your words professional. If you need to vent, call a friend, talk to a therapist, write in a journal, but don't dump it on your co-parent. That's not productive. That's not business. Another part of treating co-parenting like a business is accountability. If you agree to handle something, you follow through. If you say you'll cover the soccer practice carpool, then you show up. In business, missed deadlines have consequences. In co-parenting, missed responsibilities create instability for your child. And here's the straight talk: your kid doesn't care about your excuses. They care about whether you keep your word. Consistency is the currency of trust, and kids are watching every move you make. Now, some people push back and say, but isn't it cold to treat parenting like a business? Not at all. Think about what good businesses do. They provide structure, they deliver results, they solve problems, and they make sure responsibilities are clear. Doesn't your child deserve exactly that? This isn't about removing love from the equation. It's about creating the systems that allow love to actually flourish in a safe, stable environment. Without structure, your emotions will run the show, and that almost always creates chaos. Here's the kicker: when you run co-parenting like a business, you actually free yourself up to be more loving with your child. You're not wasting energy on fights, petty power struggles, or emotional games. You can pour that energy into bedtime stories, school projects, and cheering from the sidelines. You create an atmosphere where your child doesn't have to worry about being in the middle of two feuding parents because the adults have built a system that works. At the end of the day, you don't need to be buddies with your co-parent. You don't even have to like them. But you do need to respect the shared responsibility you have. The product you're delivering is a child who grows up with stability, consistency, and love from both parents. And just like in business, if you stay focused on the mission, keep communication professional, and follow through on your commitments, you'll succeed whether you like each other or not. Children thrive on predictability. They need to know that when they walk through the door, the rules don't change like shifting sand, and the ground under their feet isn't unstable. When you're co-parenting, one of the biggest gifts you can give your child is consistency. I'm talking about routines, discipline, values, and expectations that stay the same whether they're at mom's house, dad's house, or anywhere in between. Without that consistency, kids are left confused, anxious, and often feeling like they're the ones stuck in the middle trying to navigate two different worlds. That's too much responsibility for a child to carry. Let's get real: children don't know how to compartmentalize like adults do. If bedtime is 9 p.m. in one home but midnight in the other, that's not just a scheduling issue, it's a stability issue. It tells your child that rules depend on which parent they're with, and that leads to division, manipulation, and frustration. Pretty your child starts playing both sides because they realize, if dad lets me do this, then I can tell mom I already did it, or vice versa. And while some parents think that's cute or harmless, what it actually does is teach your child that boundaries are negotiable and authority can be worked around. That doesn't just cause problems now, it sets them up for challenges later in life with teachers, bosses, and relationships. Now let's add respect into the equation. Respect between co-parents is not about pretending you admire each other or ignoring the pain of the past. Respect in this context means you treat each other with basic dignity in front of the kids, and you honor the fact that your child loves both parents. When you roll your eyes, use sarcasm, or openly criticize the other parent, you're not just disrespecting your ex, you're disrespecting your child's heart, because in their mind, half of who they are comes from that other parent. So when you tear them down, you're tearing down your child too. Consistency and respect are linked because kids don't just listen to what you say, they watch how you live. If you set rules in one home, but constantly undermine the other parent's rules in the other, that inconsistency tells your child that adults can't be trusted to work together. That's a message that leaves kids feeling unsafe. But when they see both parents, even two parents who no longer love each other, show up with consistency and mutual respect, that child feels secure. They don't feel like they're walking on eggshells, waiting for the next fight or bracing for another round of manipulation. They can just be a kid. Here's a straight talk reality check. Inconsistency usually happens because parents let their egos get in the way. One parent says, well, if she won't let them stay up late at her house, I'll let them here just to prove I'm the fun one. Or if he's stricter, then I'll be more lenient so the kids love me more. That's not parenting. That's campaigning for popularity. You're not running for office, you're raising a human being, and when you prioritize being the favorite over being consistent, you are robbing your child of the very thing they need most, stability. Respect works the same way. It's not about whether your ex deserves it. Maybe they broke your heart, maybe they lied, cheated, or walked away from you in the worst possible way. But here's the truth. Your child doesn't need to inherit your wounds. They need to see you model self-control, restraint, and maturity. When you show respect for your co-parent, you're teaching your child how to handle conflict, how to separate emotion from responsibility, and how to honor relationships even when they're difficult. That's a life skill your child will carry forever. And let's talk about how respect sounds in action. Respect means you don't use your kids as messengers. It means you don't make them choose sides. It means you don't badmouth the other parent when you're angry. Instead, you find a neutral, professional way to communicate directly. When you model that kind of respect, your child learns that even broken families can still operate with dignity. They learn that relationships don't have to collapse into chaos, and that gives them a sense of safety. Consistency and respect don't eliminate every challenge. There will still be disagreements, hurt feelings, and frustrating moments. But when your child sees that no matter what, both parents will keep routines in place, show basic respect, and stay focused on their well-being, it gives them something priceless: peace of mind. They don't have to be the referee, the negotiator, or the emotional support system for either parent. They can trust that the adults have it handled, and that trust is what builds confidence and emotional security. At the end of the day, consistency and respect aren't just about rules and tone. They're about building a foundation your child can stand on. That foundation tells them, even though our family looks different now, you are safe, you are loved, and your world is not falling apart. That's the gift you give when you put aside ego, prioritize your child's needs, and show up with respect and consistency. And that's how you raise kids who don't just survive co-parenting. They grow strong from it. If there's one question that should be tattooed on the brain of every parent who's co-parenting, it's this: does this serve my child? Not, does this make me feel better? Not, does this punish my ex? Not, does this prove I'm the better parent? The only question that matters is whether the choice you're making genuinely benefits your child. If the answer is no, then you need to stop in your tracks and rethink your approach. Too many parents fall into the trap of using their kids as leverage. They withhold visitation, they bend the schedule, they drag out court battles, all to win points against the other parent. But here's the hard truth: your child is not a weapon, they're not a bargaining chip, and they're not the referee in your unresolved issues. They're a child, and they deserve to be protected from adult conflicts. Every time you make a choice that's about your ego instead of your child's needs, you're asking them to carry wounds that don't belong to them. Now, serving your child doesn't always feel good to you in the moment. Sometimes it means swallowing your pride. Sometimes it means letting your ex have time you'd rather keep because it's important for your child to maintain that relationship. Sometimes it means showing up at the same school concert and being civil, even though you'd rather sit on the opposite side of the auditorium. These aren't sacrifices you make for your ex, they're sacrifices you make for your child's sense of stability. Think about it this way: kids don't measure love in legal terms or financial battles. They measure love in presence, in tone, and consistency, in whether the people they depend on can be in the same room without it turning into a war. So when you ask yourself, does this serve my child? The answer often has nothing to do with what's easiest or most comfortable for you. It has everything to do with what keeps your child feeling safe, valued, and free to love both parents without guilt. Let's walk through an example. Suppose you're angry because your co-parent wants to switch weekends and it interferes with your plans. Your first reaction might be, absolutely not. Why should I make things easier for them after everything they've done to me? That's your ego talking. If you stop and ask the question, does this serve my child? You might realize that being flexible means your child still gets to attend their cousin's birthday or spend quality time with family. Serving your child in that moment may require you to put your personal frustration aside. It doesn't mean you become a pushover. It means you prioritize what truly matters. Another scenario, you're tempted to vent about your co-parent in front of your child because you're upset about a disagreement. Ask the question, does unloading your anger on your child serve them? Of course not. It only serves you in the moment, and it damages them in the long run. Serving your child means you model emotional control and keep the adult problems between adults. Now, serving your child also means making hard calls. Sometimes the child wants what isn't in their best interest. Maybe they want to skip school to avoid a tough assignment, or they beg you to let them off the hook when they break a rule. Serving your child in those moments means standing firm. It's not about giving them everything they want. It's about giving them what they need to grow into responsible, capable adults. The same principle applies to co-parenting. Sometimes serving your child means enforcing boundaries even when it makes you the bad guy. The danger comes when parents don't stop to ask the question at all. They make decisions out of impulse, revenge, or pride, and the child pays the price. They justify it by saying, well, my ex deserves it, or I need to protect myself. But your job as a parent isn't to win against your ex. It's to raise your child in a way that doesn't leave them scarred by your battles. That means discipline in your decision making. That means running every choice through the filter. Does this serve my child? And when you commit to that mindset, something powerful happens. You start to separate emotion from responsibility. You stop reacting and start responding. You find that your decisions carry more weight, not less, because they're anchored in your child's best interest, not your momentary feelings. And over time, your child feels the difference. They may not articulate it, but they experience it. They feel more stable, more loved, more secure, because deep down they sense that both parents are willing to put them first. And here's the kicker: this principle doesn't just benefit your child, it benefits you too. When you start making choices from a place of service instead of emotion, you free yourself from the endless cycle of conflict. You stop wasting energy on fights that don't matter, and you start building a legacy your child will carry with them. They'll remember that even though their parents didn't stay together, they both made choices that honored them, protected them, and put their needs above everything else. So I'll say it again: every choice, every word, every decision, run it through the filter. Does this serve my child? If the answer is no, don't do it. It's that simple and it's that hard, but it's also the standard that separates parents who keep repeating their own pain from parents who break the cycle and raise children who grow up healthier, stronger, and better equipped for life. And isn't that the whole point?